Hello again. We're going to read chapters 2 and chapter 3 of the Twits. And that's Mr. Twit and Hairy Beards. Are you ready? Mr. Twit was one of those very hairy-faced men. The whole of his face, except for his forehead, his eyes and his nose, were covered in thick hair. The stuff even sprouted in revolting tufts out of his nostrils and his ear holes. Mr. Twit felt that this hairlessness made him look terrifically wise and grand, but in truth he was neither of these things. Mr. Twit was a twit. He was born a twit, and now at the age of 60 he was a bigger twit than ever. The hair on Mr. Twit's face didn't grow smooth and matted as it does on most hairy-faced men. It grew into spikes that stuck out straight like bristles on a nail brush. And how often did Mr. Twit wash this bristly, nail-brushy face of his? The answer is never. Even on Sundays, he hadn't washed it for years. Chapter 3. Dirty Beards. As you know, an ordinary, unhairy face like yours or mine simply gets a bit smudgy if not washed often enough. And there's nothing so awful about that. But a hairy face is very different. It's a very different matter. Things cling to the hairs, especially food. Things like gravy go in right amongst the hairs and stay there. You and I can wipe our smooth faces with a flannel and we quickly look more or less right again. But a hairy man can't do that. We can also, if we're careful, eat our meals without spilling food all over our faces. But not so with a hairy man. Watch carefully the next time you see a hairy man eating his lunch, and you will notice that even if he opens his mouth very wide, it's impossible for him to get a spoonful of beef stew or ice cream or chocolate sauce into it without leaving some on the hairs. Mr. Twit didn't even bother to open his mouth wide while he ate. As a result, and because of this, and because he never washed, there was always hundreds of bits of old breakfasts and lunches and suppers sticking to the hairs around his face. They weren't big bits, mind you, because he used to wipe those off with the back of his hand or his sleeve while he was eating. But if you look closely, not that you ever wanted to, you would see tiny specks of dried up scrambled eggs stuck to the hairs, and spinach and tomato ketchup and fish fingers and minced chicken livers and all other disgusting things Mr. Twit liked to eat. Would you like to see a picture? And there's Mr. Twit eating. If you look closer still, hold your noses, ladies and gentlemen. If you peer deep into the moustachy bristles sticking out over his upper lip, you would probably see much larger objects that had escaped the wipe of his hands. Things that had been there for months and months, like a piece of maggoty cheese. Ugh. Or a mouldy old cornflake, or even a slimy tail of a tin sardine. Because of all this, Mr. Twit never really went hungry. By sticking out his tongue and curling it sideways to explore the hairy jungle round his mouth, he always found a tasty morsel here or there to nibble on. What I'm trying to tell you is that Mr. Twit was a foul and smelly old man. He was an extremely horrid man, as you will find out in a moment. Now that's the end of chapters 1, 2 and 3. Look forward to seeing you again when we read the next chapter.